Howdy folks, and welcome back to another Britgrid intermediate blender class. And today I'm just gonna quickly walk through some of the kind of details of this file I've been working on. So it's more than likely that when if you get a copy of this file, then it will be probably organized in a particular way, and there's a kind of a reason for that. So let's just go through it. So you can see that here I've got, if I just make that, I'm just going to move that down and make this a little bit bigger here. So you can see that, and I'm just going to remove the bits we don't want to see. So we're just concentrating on this Robert meshed collections, if you like, or collection. Now you can see that I've actually grouped it into different material types. So you can see that we've got a black plastic part, we've got a group for metal parts, not a group, a separate mesh. We've got plastic external parts. So in other words, these are any bits of the mesh that are facing, that the normals, by normal I mean like a line that points away from the center of each face. So the normals, if I turn the normals on for this, I can show you what I mean. If I do that, possibly, probably under here, maybe not, probably in edit mode I would imagine. So if I turn normals on, just make them a little bit smaller, so, and just make sure I've got nothing selected. And if I change this to be textured, let's turn off the face orientation. Right, so I know it's a little bit difficult to see, but so when we talk about normals, we're meaning, if we look at one of these faces, for example, let's have a look at this face. I'm just going to push the period key on my keyboard to so you can center in on that face. So you can see that it's a quad face, it's got 4 vertices in it, and the normal is pointing kind of 90 degrees away from that face. So that's what we mean by normal. So this plastic external parts mesh basically means any bit of the mesh that faces towards the outside of a Robert. And similarly, let's just turn that one off. Similarly, you can see that this, I've got another mesh that is plastic internal part, so it's kind of the inside, and it's separated because it's 2 separate meshes, because when you import something into opensim, particularly if you're setting transparency on it, then if you keep it as, if it's for example like a cup, so if you can imagine a cup or a glass, it's got an outside surface and an inside surface, and if they're one object, if it's all part of the same mesh, you get what's known as Z fighting on transparency. The opensim engine doesn't know which transparent face is in front of which, so you get a kind of horrible triangulated kind of effect when you look through the mesh at certain angles. Now the way to get around that is to actually separate the inside surface and the outside surface into two separate meshes. Okay, so that's it's a linked object, which then means the opensim kind of rendering engine, because it sees them as two distinct separate objects, it's then able to render the transparency without so many artifacts, without this horrible kind of Z fighting effect. So that's why I've split the mesh up into these separate parts. Now, and you can see it's by material as well, so it makes things easier to select. Now the chances are, in fact, Robert the robot's not quite finished yet, but the chances are what I will do is I will create vertex groups under the same kind of naming, and the vertex groups you'll find down here in the mesh properties, I believe. So let's just close these. So you can see that we've got a vertex group here. There's nothing in it at the moment. So I can assign all of these vertices. In fact, I'll do it now. So we'll select these black plastic parts. So I'll just press A to select them. Vertex groups, I can press the plus and I can call it black plastic parts. Oh, might as well keep it. Oh, still can't type. Parts. Okay, and then we're going to click on assign. And then we can select them and deselect them, and you can test that, but just by doing select. So the chances are when you get this file, you'll find that Robert could well be split up into these separate sections, but you will also have a corresponding section in the vertex groups just containing those particular vertices, because when you rig it, you'll probably want to join all the meshes together into you know, one big mesh character, which will make it slightly easier from a rigging point of view, I think. And then once you've rigged it, you can then split it back out into separate elements, so that it renders nicely once you import it into opensim. So that's just an example of how you're likely to receive it, and we can go over that again. And in fact, I mean, I've had some interesting experiences from a technical point of view in creating this character, and I've used various techniques. As I said before, I've used NURBS or splines, and I've used, for example, for the plastic parts, I've used the technique of creating an array around an empty that we talked about before, particularly for, you know, the top of kind of flower petal type shape at the top there and round Robert's neck. And I've also used the snap tool. If you go onto the snap tool, you can see that you've got an option to align rotation to target, which means if you've got a mesh object, when you turn snap on, if it's snapping to a face or to a vertex or whatever, you can click on this align rotation to target, and it will, for example, snap a cube onto an inclined face at an angle, which is what I used. Which is what I used, or the technique I used to make sure that these pieces were kind of snapped onto Robert the Robot's chest. As far as Robert the Robot goes, I've not got a lot left to do to him. All I've got to do now is create some feet for him, because he's not got any feet at the moment, and there's also some cables that run down through his legs, down through his neck, and down through his arms, onto his kind of hands, or claws, whichever you like to call them. So, and hopefully that'll be done over the next few days, and then once I've done that, I'm basically going to hand it over to you and say, well, there you go, guys, have a go at rigging that, and I will also rig it, and then we can compare notes after the event and see how we get on. So yeah, do feel free to talk to me about any, or ask me about any of the techniques I might have used that you think you might want to go over, or that you think would be helpful. Anyway, thank you very much for watching and joining us today. Take care, keep your eye on the Blender Intermediate channel, and I look forward to seeing you all again next week. Bye for now.